William Eubank has quietly become one of those directors worth paying attention to, especially when he is working somewhere between science fiction and hard-edge action. After Love, The Signal, Underwater, Paranormal Activity, Next of Kin, and the extremely entertaining Land of Bad, he is returning with Ghost Soldier, and the first trailer suggests he is combining almost everything he does best: military tension, grounded action, experimental technology, and one highly trained man pushed into a fight he never wanted. Caviezel stars as Henry Fitzgerald, a former Green Beret living a quiet life in the countryside. Fitz is deliberately keeping a low profile, and the trailer makes it clear that whatever he did in his previous life, he would rather leave it behind. He has a home, a community, and people around him who are simply trying to survive. Then a powerful outside corporation arrives with plans to take control of the land and force local families out. That is where the movie shifts from rural drama into full action thriller. Fitz does not appear interested in becoming anyone's hero, but once the company's tactics become aggressive, he decides that staying quiet is no longer an option. The official synopsis describes the situation as a one-man war, and the trailer absolutely sells that idea. Fitz is not simply an old soldier pulling a rifle out of storage. He is also revealed to be an advanced weapons developer, which gives Ghost Soldier a very different edge from a standard revenge movie. The most interesting piece of technology is the invisibility system. The trailer repeatedly emphasizes Fitz's helmet and camouflage equipment, making him look almost like a military ghost moving through the battlefield. That concept could easily become too exaggerated, but Eubank appears to be grounding it in something closer to experimental defense technology rather than full superhero science fiction. The result is a movie that still feels physical even when Fitz is using equipment nobody around him understands. That is probably the smartest choice the film can make. Ghost Soldier does not need laser weapons or giant futuristic machines. It only needs technology that gives Fitz a believable advantage over people who think they know exactly what kind of man they are dealing with. His enemies see an isolated, older man living quietly in the countryside. What they do not see is decades of special forces training and a collection of tools designed by someone who understands combat on a level they clearly do not. There is also something very satisfying about the premise itself. A corporation arrives believing money and influence will allow it to remove people from their homes. Then it discovers that one of those people happens to be the worst possible person to threaten. It is a familiar setup, but familiar does not mean ineffective. Movies like this work when the audience understands the power imbalance at the beginning and then gets to watch that balance reverse. The difference here is that Fitz does not appear to be fighting only for himself. The trailer frames the conflict as something happening to the entire community. That gives his decision more weight. He could probably disappear. He could leave the land behind. Instead, he stays because the people around him cannot simply walk away from everything they own. His military background gives him the ability to fight, but his sense of justice gives him the reason. Caviezel is an interesting choice for that role because the character depends heavily on restraint. Fitz should not feel like someone who enjoys violence. He should feel like someone who knows exactly what violence costs and understands how quickly it can escalate. The trailer plays him that way. He is quiet, observant, and controlled until the moment control is no longer useful. Then the action becomes fast and direct. The supporting cast gives the movie even more credibility. Garrett Dillahunt, Shea Wiggum, and Olivia Thirlby are exactly the kind of actors who can make a smaller action thriller feel more lived in. They are performers who can give supporting characters personality without needing huge amounts of screen time. The trailer does not reveal enough to know exactly how each of them fits into the conflict, but their presence suggests Ghost Soldier may have more character texture than a simple one-man army story. Eubank is the main reason I am optimistic. Land of Bad proved he understands how to make tactical action feel tense without overcomplicating it. That movie used geography, communication, military procedure, and limited information to create suspense. Ghost Soldier seems to be taking that same basic approach and shrinking it into a more personal battle. instead of soldiers trapped behind enemy lines. This is one veteran defending familiar territory from people who underestimate him. That shift matters because Fitz knows this environment better than the people coming after him. He knows the land, the roads, the buildings, and probably every place where an ambush can happen. Add experimental camouflage and advanced weapons to that advantage, and suddenly the corporate security forces are not invading a weak rural community. They are entering a battlefield already controlled by someone they cannot see. The trailer also suggests that the action will remain varied. We see close quarters fighting, firearms, stealth attacks, and moments built around Fitz using technology to manipulate what his enemies think is happening. That creates more possibilities than simply watching him win gunfight after gunfight. If the movie is smart, every action sequence will reveal another layer of what his equipment can do, while also showing that the technology is not flawless. That last part is important. Experimental weapons are only interesting when they have limits. If Fitz can become completely invisible forever and kill everyone without risk, the tension disappears. The trailer seems aware of that because he still looks vulnerable. He still takes hits. He still has to move carefully. The technology gives him an edge, but it does not appear to make him invincible. There is also a clear thematic idea underneath the action. Fitz is someone who tried to leave war behind, only to discover that violence can still find him when powerful people decide ordinary communities are disposable. The corporation believes property is simply an asset. Fitz sees homes, history, and people. That conflict is simple, but it gives the movie a moral line the audience can immediately understand. The biggest question will be how much depth the villains receive. A faceless corporation is easy to hate, but a movie becomes more interesting when the people enforcing its decisions have their own motivations, arrogance, and strategy. If Ghost Soldier gives Fitz an opponent who can actually adapt to him, the second half could become a genuine tactical duel instead of a straightforward revenge fantasy. I want to know what you think after this first look. Does Ghost Soldier feel like the perfect follow-up to Land of Bad, or does the invisibility technology push the concept too far into science fiction for you? Because if Eubank can keep the action grounded while making Fitz's experimental weapons feel dangerous rather than magical, this could be one of those movies that knows exactly what it is and delivers it without apology.